So, good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 7, and we are here to present the different the different lesson of cross cutting issues in gender and sexuality. So, here is the agenda. First is we have lesson 25 to be reported by me, lesson 26 to be reported by Miss Molly, lesson 27 to be reported by Miss Charby, and lesson 28 to be reported by Miss Vincent. So let's proceed to the first topic, which is the gender and labor. So here is the lesson objectives. So this module discusses relationships of gender equality, and labor. So this also covers the policies of gender equality in the labor market. Further, this module tackles the status of gender equality in the various sectors of the labor market. So at the end of this module, you should be able to first is to understand fully the relationship of gender equality, and labor. Second is to determine the status of gender equality in the various sectors of labor market. And third is to comprehend salient policies on gender equality in the labor market. So before we proceed to the employment sectors, let us know first what is this gender and labor in gender and sexuality. So unsa din na siya? So the gender and labor, the division of labor refers to the way each society divides work among men and women, boys and girls, according to socially established gender roles or what it is considered suitable and valuable for each sex. So we have here the first employment sectors, which is the agriculture. So women farmers do not have an equal opportunity to acquire land or register it in their own names. They have fewer inheritance rights than male farmers. So, na-include ni siya sa paghatag og patas or what we say equal opportunity and resources to both men and women. So, sa agricultural DI, importante nga ang resources nga nag-include sa land, credit, or sa participation is sa mga tighimo or organizations and the capacity building through trainings, extensions, and services. So next is the industry and manufacturing. So the number of women working in economic zone is estimated to represent 64% of total employment and may be much higher in some industries, such as electronics and apparel. So women's share of employment in the export processing zones is much greater than women's share of the labor force as a whole, and the conditions of employment are of concern. So, the manufacturing industry is in need of skilled workers. So, employers and organizations across the country are pushing to fill open jobs with a new focus on increasing gender diversity in the manufacturing workforce and hiring more female workers. So, today, women make up almost half of the United States labor force. However, women continue to be underrepresented in the manufacturing field. So, in an industry that consistently ranks among the nation's top 5 employers, women makes up less than 30% of the manufacturing workforce. This means that out of 11.9 million workers employed in manufacturing today, less than 3.5 million are females. So another issue with employment sector is the tourism. So it appears that tourism planning has not included women or has had an insufficient regard of gender issues. Within the tourism industry, relatively few women have the educational qualification or foreign language skills to complete for front of house positions in the hotel industry. So, as tour guides or in travel agencies, and women are more likely to be employed as housekeepers, waitresses, or similar low level positions. So, ang major challenge ani niya is to increase the development sa tourism sa gender perspective. And some people believe nga involve ang gender analysis sa count sa men and women and without considering sa ilang mga differences. Because working in tourism from a gender perspective entails the use of gender analysis. So next is the business processing outsourcing. So the Philippine Information Technology or the Business Process Outsourcing Roadmap 2011 to 2016 is not gender responsive and does not address women's constraints in accessing higher paid work in non-voice services or likely growth in information technology and engineering. So, business processing outsourcing is a growing sector of the global economy and nagrepresent sa mga gipadako or gipatubo nga mga opportunity para sa pagpanarbaho para sa mga babayi and an increasing demands made on them. So the impact of outsourcing on women is shown clearly emerging markets and top of the BPO destinations. So next sector is the government services. So public sector employment is an important source of jobs with better pay conditions for women than many other industrial sectors, but when are constrained by being predominantly employed in traditional, gender stereotyped care sector government occupations such as health and education, and they are underrepresented in the higher paying subsectors. So the Magna Carta of Women or Republic Act number 9710 defined program or GAD as the development perspective and process empowering, equitable, sustainable, free from violence, supportive of self-determination and actualization of human gender equality as a fundamental value that should be reflected contents that women are active agents of development. So next is the entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship, there has been a rapid surge in the number and proportion of female entrepreneurs in developing countries. So entrepreneurship plays an important role in creating jobs, innovation, and growth. So against these backdrops, interest in women's entrepreneurship has grown among scholars and policymakers. While the rationale for women's entrepreneurship has traditionally focused on enhancing women's equality, empowerment, and social inclusion, its development is now seen to make good economic sense. Entrepreneurship itself creates different environments with different challenges for males and females, some of which could relate to stereotypes that could create a self-imposed barrier of females. So in other words, it becomes harder for them to succeed or are primed to not pursue it, which has been evidenced by the studies that have shown a certain bias to disfavor traits more commonly found on females, or stereotyping effects that create a cascade on perception toward the entrepreneur stereotype. So lastly is the salient policies on gender equality in the labor market. So the Philippines has ratified 34 ILO conventions and is party to all the fundamental United Nations Human Rights Convention and conventions. So, Article 3, Chapter 1 of the Labor Code, as well as Republic Act 6725, 7192, 7877, and 8551 all provide for fundamental human rights protection, including anti-discrimination provisions, and they ensure fundamental equality, prohibitions of sexual harassment, and temporary special measures. So, the Magna Carta of Women Republic Act 9710 is an overall legislative framework that articulates the specific rights, needs, and supports required by women in their general and working lives. And although the Magna Carta of Women provides a good legislative framework, implementation issues remain. Filipino people, women, often do not know about their rights, and the complaints system is confusing even if they do. So the gender division of labor refers to the allocation of different jobs or types of work to women and men. It changes in the distribution of human capital or education and its effect on the gender division of labor. So gender dimensions of informal employment and small businesses. So muna siya ang the gender and the labor. It is the vision that men and women should be treated equally in social, economic, and all other aspects of society, and to not be discriminated against on the basis of their gender. World bodies have defined gender equality in terms of human rights, especially women's rights, and economic development. So, gender equality means that women and men and girls and boys enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protections. It does not require that girls and boys or women and men be the same or that they be treated exactly alike. So this ends up my topic. So I will give the mic to Miss Molly to discuss the lesson 26. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sharonane Tabalog. So now, let's proceed to Gender and Media, Lesson 26. But before we start, let's first know the lesson objectives. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to discuss the importance of media representation and appreciate the progress in media representation of gender. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, 81% of the Filipinos watch the televisions, and it still remains to be the most used and trusted source of information in our country. We watch TV for entertainment and information through TV soap operas, news, and entertainment programs. So, kita man jud diri tanan nag-use og TV and media for grabbing informations and what is happening in our country and also in other country para natay knowledge about what is happening. Media representation. Media representation is how the media presents or frames aspects of society, such as gender, age, or ethnicity. BBC 2019. So, ang media representation is all about kuno unsay tan-aw sa mga tao sa media and giunsa siya pag-portray. It is important because it shapes the audience knowledge and understanding and will contribute to their ideas and attitudes. Kay important ni siya because if unsa ang gipakita or unsa ang gitel or gi-show sa mga tao sa social media, kay magdepend man ana ang pag-treat sa tao nimo or ilang pagsabot nimo. So nana bali if kana im gi-portray sa media, so nana sila knowledge og unsa jud ka. So mag-base sila dira. So tungod sa exposure sa television sa media kay ang mga tao kay grabe na kaayo og pag stereotypes sa ubang tao nga ilang belief system ma-affect. Since the TV uses one-way mode of communication wherein feedback is rarely received or encouraged, more often we are left on our own to process the ideas and opinions directed to us, the viewers. We passively laughed at stereotypes, not giving it a second thought. So, if atong gitanaw na soap opera is katawanon jud siya, then pero para sa uban and sensitive. So dili ka if imtanaw na kataonon siya, so kataonon jud para nimo. 'Di ba? So lahi jud opinion ang mga tao. So mag-base jud siya sa giportray sa media. Media stereotypes. Media stereotypes are simplified representation of a person, groups of people, or a place through basic or obvious characteristics which are often exaggerated. BBC 2019. So, after ni media representation, syempre, naaman dyan mga opinions, own ideas, own beliefs ang mga tao. So, diri na ni si media stereotype. So, although stereotypes can help people connect with the content as they reflect in their own realities, it can have negative effects on disadvantageous groups like LGBT community by reinforcing negative and even false stereotypes. So, if unsay gi-represent sa media sa LGBT, kay usually maujud ang maghatag og ideas, especially sa mga tao nga wala na hagaan og enough knowledge about LGBT community. So the LGBT community are highly misrepresented in the Philippine media. There are many stereotypes of the LGBT in the media, and most are not flattering. Often they are used as a comic relief in their portrayal of loud and boisterous, bakla, the straight male who acts like bakla with exaggerated gestures, the sex-deprived muscular male homosexual, or the awkward, or we know as tomboy, who eventually becomes a feminine woman after meeting the man of her dreams. So, naay mga movie nga, itry dya po nilag change ang gender sa usa ka tawo at the end of the movie. For example, sa first part is gay siya. So, itry nila og change ang gender sa usa ka tawo by ipalaila sa babay nga gwapa, sa babay nga inani, i-change nila, i-turn nila balik into boy ang isa ka character or kana nga character, ang gay nga character, i-turn nila balik into a boy. But there are very few LGBT main characters in the international television and even very scarce in the Philippine television. They are often as sidekicks, victims, or villains. Although there are few LGBT celebrities in the Philippines who are out and proud of their sexual orientation, such as Boy Abunda, Vice Ganda, Isa Sigara, and Jake Zarus, their sexuality is rarely the focus of the programs they are in. So, parihan ni Vice Ganda. So, iyang program is all about kaning magchika-chika sa mga celebrities. So, syempre, as we all know, ang mga gay community kay more on verbal jud sila and lingaw jud di ba kaayo iyang show. So, na-fit jud siya sa show nga gihatag sa ABS-CBN. So, also in other country sa American TV show kay naa sad ang Glee. Usa siya ka TV show nga featured teenagers who are gay and lesbian. The gay kiss was omitted in the Philippine broadcast, although it was seen as a milestone in the international media. The AIDS pandemic in 70s also added to the negative stereotyping of the gay male as a sexual deviant. So ang kaning AIDS mas kaning tungod aning AIDS kay mas bati ang tan-aw na sa mga tao sa mga gay. Tungod sa kaning pressure nga nadawat sa LGBT community, ang gay and lesbian liberation movement in 1970s, the international media was forced to recognize and set media standard for LGBT news coverage. Sa gawas, ang media kay gi-forced og pag-set na jud og standards para sa LGBT kay unfair baya kaayo, dapat na jud baya equality. So here in the Philippines, lack of awareness Japon ang atuang lack of awareness ang mga media practitioners of what they should label LGBT terms. And also the Soji bill nga ipatupad ni Riza Hontiveros. So most of the news come from the LGBT community, often on coming out of sorry celebrities such as Isa Sigera, Jake Zarus, or Charis Pempenko, and also Rosana Rosas. Pride March events, hate crimes, and controversies. Media coverage on the LGBT community in the Philippines went from no coverage, ridicule, censorship to limited portrayal. However, limiting it is not taken as a sign of greater social acceptance as compared to its total blackout just decades ago. There are landmark TV shows about the LGBT community such as My Husband's Lover 2013, which of course murag halos kitang tanan nakita jud ani ang nagda kay sila Tom Rodriguez, Dennis Trillo, and Carla Abellana. Also, The Rich Man's Daughter 2015. There are also a handful of LGBT-themed movies that are featured the different aspects of the LGBT person, from the realization of their sexual orientation, their coming out, to their acceptance in their family and communities. So, napaylaing movie katong Die Beautiful kang Paulo Ballesteros. So, nindot jud kayo to siya. So, that is the end of my topic. I hope you have learned something, and now let's proceed to lesson 26. Thank you for listening.
A pleasant afternoon again, everyone. I am Charvi Rosasenya, and at this point, I am going to discuss to you all my assigned topic, which is lesson 27, entitled Gender and Activism. Before I officially start to talk about gender and activism, let us know first our objectives. So at the end of the lesson, we should be able to, first, discuss heteronormativity and its manifestations, and second is to appreciate the contribution of activism in social change. Our society is now advocating towards equal rights for everyone through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the UDHR, which was drafted in 1948 by all countries who are members of the United Nations. And it acknowledges that everyone, including LGBT people, is equal in dignity and in rights. Although most countries no longer punish or outlaw homosexuality, there is still much to be done for the LGBT people to fully enjoy their human rights. And why? Because of heteronormativity. So what is heteronormativity? So heteronormativity means of relating to or based on the attitude that heterosexuality is the only normal and natural expression of sexuality. And heteronormativity, it is when we assume that everyone is heterosexual, that everyone is straight, and that is the standard for everyone. So, what is heterosexual? So, heterosexual people are those that are sexually or romantically attracted only to the opposite sex. Like men are attracted to women and women are attracted to men. Meaning, heterosexual are straight people. And with heteronormativity, it means that they assume that everyone is straight. They assume that everyone is heterosexual. And that is the standard. That is the normal. And that is the natural expression of sexuality for them. With a heteronormative point of view, straight people are placed at a privileged group by viewing them as the standard or normal. And anyone who does not adhere to that standard are viewed as lesser. So if you have a heteronormative point of view, you viewed those straight people or those heterosexual people as the standard. And anyone who does not adhere to that standard are viewed as lesser, like lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transgender, and other people who reject the notion of gender binaries, the male-female and the masculine-feminine. Heteronormativity has been so ingrained in our social and political institutions that it has almost become invisible. Like most people unknowingly subscribe to heteronormative standards just because that is the way it has always been for them. Like mo na nang naandan. And an example of heteronormative standard kay like assigning the color blue for boys and the color pink for girls. But what happens when a boy wants pink toys? Like for example, if you are a parent and you have a heteronormative point of view and you believe in the heteronormative standard that boys are for blue and that girls is only for pinks. But what happens when your son wants pink toys? Diba? You reprimand him, you criticized him. And that is called normalization. So what is normalization? So normalization, it limits a person's choice and freedom. So as I've mentioned earlier, that if you are a parent and you have a heteronormative point of view and your son wants pink toys, diba, they are reprimanded and they are criticized because they didn't meet your heteronormative standards. And that process is called normalization. You limit your child's choice. You limit your child's freedom to choose what he wants, and that is the pink toys. And for the LGBT, it means they are marginalized. Like they are treated as inferior. Like they are discriminated on, branded as abnormal, and are treated as second-class citizens. And normalization, this leads to homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, prejudice, discrimination, violence, and other hostile acts towards the LGBT people. So normalization happens because of heteronormativity. And heteronormativity comes with heteronormative violence. And an example of heteronormative violence is the murder of LGBT men and women during the Nazi Holocaust. Like 6 million, imagine 6 million LGBT men and women Jews were murdered during the Second World War. Another example of heteronormative violence in the present day is when you are punishing LGBT children for expressing who they are or being vocal about who they are attracted to. Like, kinsa kita ato sa episode ni Aura sa MMK, katong child ba siya, being vocal na kay siya nga, ingani gay siya, then he is attracted to men, then iyang papa kay ipunish siya, then that is heteronormative violence. Another example is in the workplace. It could mean being fired or not being promoted just because you are not straight, especially if imong boss is heteronormative and they treated LGBT people as second-class citizens. Another example is at home. It could mean being disowned by our family because you are LGBT. Maunang gamay ra kay ang nag-out sa ilang family kay basing ma-disown sila. And another is being bullied by your family because you are not masculine enough or you are not feminine enough. Like you didn't met their heteronormative standard. And another example of heteronormative violence is in politics. Like it manifests in policies denying LGBT their freedom, such as anti-sodomy laws in many countries where being LGBT is a crime punishable by imprisonment or death. Heteronormative violence is very dangerous. And in order for us to stop and minimize heteronormativity, we should perform activism. And what is activism? Activism is the collective efforts to shape and transform political, social, cultural, and other environmental status quo. And an activist is someone who is active in campaigning for change, normally on political or social issues like LGBT issues. And that is challenging heteronormativity through activism. Heteronormativity is a social construct, and history has proven society's changing attitudes on homosexuality. History showed us that egalitarian acceptance of homosexuality in the ancient hunter-gatherer civilizations, the violent erasure of the gender deviance, and condemnation of homosexuality with the spread of Abrahamic religion, like Jews, Christians, Muslims, and other religions who believe in one God. LGBT activism have had various social movements to advocate for LGBT people equal rights in the 2000s, liberation in 1960s and 1970s, and self-acceptance through the homophile movement in 1950s. And these social movements engage in political and social activism is through street rallies, pride marches, law lobbying, engaging the media, arts, research, and many other activities that empower the LGBT community. Dissent is so powerful. It can make significant changes in our society. And breaking the culture of silence on the daily heteronormative violence that are committed and condoned by societies, the first step we should do in order for us to stop and minimize heteronormativity is by refusing to participate in heteronormative violence towards the LGBT. And the first step for social change is to participate in various events for the LGBT community. And these events are the following. So every year on May 17, they celebrate International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, or the IDAHOT. On May 31, they celebrate International Transgender Day of Visibility. On November 20, they celebrate Transgender Day of Remembrance. And every year, the very famous, they celebrate every month of June as their Pride Month. In conclusion, heteronormativity as a social construct can be undone through activism. So activism is very important for us to stop and minimize heteronormativity, to stop heteronormative violence. Social change may not be something that happens right away, but decades of LGBT struggle has proven that change can happen because it is very evident na. Di ba sa una, LGBT is very hard to accept pa, pero karon naghinahinay na. And you do not have to be an LGBT to fight for the equal rights. You just have to be a human who believes in freedom and equality for all. And that would be all for my topic. Thank you all for listening, and God bless us all.
So, good afternoon, everyone. At this juncture of our report, let us tackle about the gender and other cross-cutting issues in education, general health, and mental health. So, this module discusses the intersectionality between gender and other cross-cutting concerns such as access to education and health services. So at the end of the lesson, you should be able to discuss how and why gender lens is necessary in understanding other social issues, and second is to show appreciation of the intersectionality between gender, education, and other health, especially mental health. So let's tackle about the definition of terms. So social services. It is a service that are necessary for individuals and families to maintain social functioning and achieve their utmost potential. Second is education. It is a process of teaching and learning and related activities geared toward making this process organized, effective, and responds to people's needs. Next is health. It is a sense of well-being and absence of diseases. Mental health is one of the most important. It is a sense of mental well-being which allows achievement of human potential through positive copying. So, in earlier discussion, it has been noted that laws provide for equity among people of all genders. In principle, humans, regardless of gender, have basic human rights emerging from their intrinsic human dignity. So, in gender and education, the UNICEF of 2011 report on adolescents show that while there is already an increase in access to education for all genders, there remains to be many girls and women who are unable to go to school. However, interesting trends can be observed from 2013 Functional Literacy Education and Mass Media Survey. This study showed that there are more males, children aged 6 to 14, who are able to attend school compared to females. However, for people aged 15 to 24, there are actually more females who are able to go to school compared to males. According to the Philippine Statistical Authority of 2015, this may mean that while there are more males who are able to receive basic education, there are more females who are able to proceed to higher education. So now let's proceed to gender and health. So another basic social service we all need is health services. Health, according to World Health Organization, does not only mean absence of diseases, but a state of well-being. The Department of Health of the Philippines follows a cluster approach in health, wherein there are more primary clusters, which is the public health, water sanitation and hygiene, nutrition, and mental health and psychosocial support. Next, into gender and mental health. So, one of the most prevalent issues facing adolescents nowadays is mental health. The changing environment also brings forth stressors that are not existing before. People are challenged to pay attention not only to their physical health, but also their psychological wellness. In the context of gender and sexuality, some issues faced by humans related to their sexuality and to the roles they assume in the society are mental, psychological in nature. Some of these are follows. Copying with sexual and reproductive health issues, especially teenage pregnancy, STD, HIV confusion, and doubt. Second is psychological impacts of SOGI-related concerns and gender roles expectation. Psychosocial concerns emerging from intimate romantic relationship and psychological trauma from GBV. That's all for our report. Thank you.